"You are the rock on which I will build my church." Minutes later, same mouth, same breath of conversation. "Get behind me, Satan." No years between these two sentences, no change of heart, no betrayal, no separate scene. The same man standing in the same dust, hearing the highest praise a human being had ever received from this teacher. And then the most violent rebuke recorded anywhere in the four Gospels. Something happened in between. Something that the smoothed-over version, the flannel-board version, the version told to children who need their heroes uncomplicated, that version skips right past. We are going to slow down and sit inside the minutes in between. To understand what actually happened at Caesarea Philippi, you have to understand where they were standing, because the location was not incidental. It was the point. Caesarea Philippi sat at the base of Mount Hermon, roughly 25 miles north of the Sea of Galilee, and it was, by any reasonable measure, one of the strangest places Jesus could have chosen to ask his most important question. This was not neutral ground. This was a city saturated in the machinery of empire and myth. A massive cave in the rock face there was believed by locals to be one of the gates to the underworld. The birthplace of the god Pan, whose temple niche was literally carved into the stone cliff, worship chiseled directly into the mountain itself. Nearby stood a gleaming white temple built by Herod the Great, dedicated to Caesar Augustus himself, a Roman emperor honored as divine, worshipped as a god who ruled the earth. The very name of the city paid tribute to two rulers, Caesar and Philip, the Herodian tetrarch who governed the region. So when Jesus stood his disciples in front of this, pagan altars behind him, an emperor's temple in view, a mountain riddled with shrines to gods of the underworld, and asked, "Who do people say that I am?" He was not asking in a vacuum. He was asking in the shadow of every claim to divine and political power in the ancient world. He was asking essentially surrounded by the competition. And you need one more piece of context before the question lands with its full weight. What the word Messiah actually meant to the men standing there. This is where the Sunday school version quietly rewrites history. In the modern imagination, Messiah means spiritual savior, a gentle, almost abstract concept about sin and forgiveness. But to a first-century Jew living under Roman occupation, paying Roman taxes, watching Roman soldiers patrol streets that used to belong to the descendants of David, Messiah meant something concrete and violent and political. It meant a king, a warrior, a liberator in the tradition of Judah Maccabee, someone who would break the empire's teeth and restore the throne of Israel. Messiah meant Rome finally paying for what it had done. It meant victory, not sacrifice. This is the pressure cooker Peter is standing inside when Jesus turns and asks him directly, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answers without hesitation, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus' response is staggering in its intimacy. He tells Peter that flesh and blood did not reveal this to him, that this recognition came from something deeper than reasoning, something revealed. Then he gives Peter a name that will outlive both of them. "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." He speaks of keys, the keys of the kingdom of heaven, the authority to bind and loose. In a culture obsessed with lineage, legacy, and standing, this is as close to a coronation as a fisherman from Galilee is ever going to get. Peter has just been named the foundation stone of something that will outlast every empire currently visible from where he's standing, Rome included. And then, immediately in the very next breath of the same conversation, Jesus begins to explain what being the Messiah is actually going to require of him. He tells them plainly for the first time that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders and chief priests and be killed, and on the third day be raised. Suffer, be killed, not conquer, not liberate, not sit a throne while Rome burns. Peter cannot hold this. He takes Jesus aside, pulls him away from the others, an act of intimacy and desperation, and rebukes him. The word used is strong. It's the same word used for silencing demons, for commanding storms. Peter is not gently questioning. He is trying to shut this down. God forbid it, Lord, this shall never happen to you. If this is the first time you're hearing the story told this way, with the weight left in, not smoothed out, subscribe. Because next week we're going back into the moment the Gospels remember but rarely explain, and Jesus turns on him, not with patience, not with a gentle correction. He says, "Get behind me, Satan, you are a hindrance to me. For you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man." Sit inside that for a moment, because it deserves more than a passing wince. This is not a stranger being rebuked. This is not an enemy testing Jesus in the wilderness the way Satan had done at the start of his ministry. This is the man just named the Rock, the foundation, being called in essence, the adversary. The Greek word Satan carries the sense of an opponent, an obstacle, one who works against the purpose. Peter, minutes after being handed the keys of the kingdom, is told he is now standing in the doorway of it, blocking the way through. What was Peter actually thinking in that moment? Consider what was riding on this for him personally. He had left his nets, his boat, his father's business, 3 years of his working life, on the promise that this man was the one Israel had been waiting centuries for. If Jesus dies in Jerusalem at the hands of the priests and the Romans, then the movement dies with him. There is no throne. There is no liberation. There is only another failed messianic hope. Another man dead at Rome's hands. Another disappointed nation. Peter was not defending an abstract theological point. He was staring down the collapse of everything he had bet his life on. Here is the part the flannel-board version cannot hold, because it complicates the hero too much to say out loud. Recognizing who Jesus was and understanding what he had actually come to do were two entirely separate revelations. Peter had received the first. He had not yet received, could not yet receive the second. The confession came from the Father, Jesus said so himself, but the rebuke came from somewhere older in Peter, from every scroll he'd heard read in synagogue about kings and conquest, from centuries of hoping for a Messiah who wins. A suffering Messiah was not merely unexpected to a man raised on that hope. It was close to incoherent. It looked to Peter exactly like defeat wearing the mask of destiny. And defeat was the one outcome his entire theology had no room to survive. This is why the rebuke lands where it does, immediately after the blessing, without pause, without transition. Because the gospel writers are not smoothing this contradiction over. They are preserving it. They watched it happen, and they wrote it down exactly as violent as it was. The same man praised as foundation and named as adversary in the same conversation, because getting the identity right had never once guaranteed he understood what that identity would cost. Peter was closer to the truth than anyone else standing on that mountain that day. And it was precisely that closeness that made the part he couldn't accept feel less like revelation and more like betrayal.